The transfer portal is opening, but maybe more importantly, the sky is absolutely falling right now.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. As always, I am Brandon Olsen, lifelong Florida Gators fan. Been through some stuff in my life, right? Many of us have. It's been a rough couple years for us all, but the transfer portal is opening this week. More specifically, it opens on January 2nd. So technically, it opens next year, but also this week, the same thing. I had to get that corny ass joke out the way, right? It opens on Friday, January 2nd. And the Florida Gators got some news today that isn't awesome, right? In the sense that edge rusher Jaden Woods has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal, which sucks, right? Like we can call that outright what it is. It sucks if you're a Florida Gators fan. I see you all in the chat. I love you. We'll get to you. But it outright sucks to have a player like Jaden Woods enter the transfer portal. He was a big addition when the Florida Gators got him. And now it appears to be that he is going to be, I guess we'll say, skedaddling out. D'Anton Lynn is likely going to Penn State following Matt Campbell, which is a great move for Matt. Honestly, I was very skeptical of John Heacock carrying over to the Big Ten from Iowa State, at least as DC. But that now leaves the Florida Gators with Jaden Woods entering the transfer portal. He played the 9th most snaps on the entire team this year. And part of that is because George Gums missed a few games with injury. But also part of that is just outright he earned it, right? Jaden Woods was a significant contributor that played, well, some pretty damn good football this year, especially for a true freshman. I mean, look, this let me also throw this out there. This was a year where the Florida Gators had just an awful pass rush, right? Jaden Woods had 17 pressures. That was the most on the team. Those 17 pressures were the most, according to PFF, on the team, tied with Tyreek Sapp. And he is now entering the transfer portal. I will throw this out there that, because there's a lot of players that have entered the transfer portal from Florida where I've gone, you know what? I'm not too broken up about it, right? I'm not too heartbroken about guys like Jordan Castell. I mean, even Hayden Hanson, like I love Hayden, but Jordan Castell, Hayden, Sharif Denson, like DJ Lagway, a bunch of starters that they entered the transfer portal. And my thought was kind of like, all right, you know, they're guys that are replaceable. Because they are, right? DJ Lagway did not play well. Hayden was, I thought, a very strong blocker, but wasn't very involved in the passing attack. Sharif Denson was a great run defender and pass rusher, but not exactly what you're looking for from the nickel spot, right? Jaden Woods hitting the portal, though, is probably the one that's hurt the most, honestly, just because he was a true freshman this year that played pretty well, defended the run, rushed the passer. He wasn't just this one-trick pony. Hated how much he was in coverage, which amongst edge rushers was more than anybody other than George Gums. But hated that, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles in the Ron Roberts scheme, right? Like I said, I am a big fan of the Ron Roberts scheme long-term and over the grand scheme of things, no pun intended. But end of the day, it felt like he kind of lost the fastball this year, play calling. And Jaden Woods was a guy that played really well in this scheme, despite, you know, probably not someone that should have been in coverage as much as he was. He, of course, had the pick. A really promising edge rusher, right? I don't think he was this this dominant elite edge rusher or like this awesome player that I think a lot of the fans want to talk him up. It's just because, again, I think we do this thing where we go, oh, this guy was really good as a true freshman or really promising as a true freshman. So that means that he's really good, or that means that he's going to be really good. And that's not necessarily how it carries over. Like Q said in the chat, hit the like button. Like, subscribe, comment, review, all that fun stuff. But I think with Jaden Woods, like, it does suck. But, as On3, I think it was On3, reported, like, Florida was willing to match whatever they could match for Jaden Woods. This was not one of the many instances that we've been told where it's like, oh, yeah, Florida wanted to be cheap in this area, or Florida had a value, which I do think is a fair thing to have, right? I do think that there's such a situation where you go, hey, we're willing to pay. I'm just throwing a number out there just to make things easy. Where you go, hey, we're willing to pay, or we value this player at, again, this is just a number to make things easy. This is not a specific number for a specific player, but like, we're willing to pay you $500,000, or that's where we value you at. And I think there's some spots where you go, that's as high as we're going to go. And I think there's some spots where you say, all right, we're willing to go like 10% higher than that because of whatever reason it could be, right? You play a premium position. You were a true freshman this year, whatever it may be. I think there's, guys where you go, hey, we'll pay more than the actual value we have. I do think it's important to have a value that you have assigned to the player. Okay. All of that being said, this is not one of those cases where there was a value and then Florida went, that's where we value you. That's where we hold you. We're not going higher than that. From what I was told, this is an instance where Florida was willing to break the bank, back up the Brinks truck, whatever you want to call. Florida was willing to do all of that. It was as simple as, I think it was On3 reported that he just wanted to leave, whether it was a scheme fit, no matter what it was, whatever it may have been, that this wasn't a money thing, right? And so for Florida fans, like, at least you can hang your hat and going, all right, we're not lowballing guys like Jaden Woods. But it also just sucks because then you go, well, if it's not money, there's a different reason that you don't want to be here. Right. And I think that's a spot that stings, frankly. Right. Also important to note that Jaden Woods is a guy from Kansas. If I'm not mistaken, he's from the same town as, or maybe it's a city. I don't know. Honestly, I'm just going to be frank with you. When we talk about Kansas, it's all towns to me. But from Shawnee, Kansas, which is, I believe, the same town as Graham Mertz. Not that necessarily is indicative of anything, but it is what it is. Flipped him from Penn State to get him to Gainesville, and then now he's out. So is that, as far as, is there a chance he comes back? Maybe. Like, if it is a scheme thing, then I think you can kind of sell guys, right? Like, I think Brad White, John Summerall can kind of go, hey, like, this is what we've typically done. But if it means keeping you, then yeah, we'll pivot. We won't have you be the edge that drops into coverage or whatever it may be, right? I think there's levels to it. I do think that, I don't want to say it's a leverage play with a lot of the guys that enter the portal. And I use the term leverage play only because I've seen social media try to go, oh, a lot of the guys entering the portal, it's a leverage play, which for a lot of them, sure, it might be. But I also think that for a lot of them, it's as simple as they don't want to be here, right? We can say it's awesome to play for the logo. We could say all that stuff, and it's true, right? But at the same time, a lot of these guys do commit to a coach or a coaching staff or a system or whatever it may be. They commit to other things other than just logo, money, right? There's a lot of factors that go into this. And for Jaden Woods, it's reportedly a bit of a scheme thing. There's a lot that goes into it, right? I don't know why. Sorry, I'm just now looking into the chat. And I see a bunch of people just talking Woods' big loss. He's going to Miami. I don't think that's true. I'm going to say that Woods is going into the portal. Is this a money grab move? No. I know that message was sent before. I said, I think how that message was sent before we even live. But this isn't a money grab thing because the money was there for Jaden Woods. He didn't need to go into the portal if he wanted the money. He could have just said, this is the amount I want. And to my knowledge, Florida would have gone, all right, let's do it. And look, there's going to be some guys where it's like, look, I don't think it's to say that he's gone, right? I do think there's a lot of guys where they can hit the portal, come back. There are going to be some guys who just enter the portal, see what they're worth, and they go, all right, that's the amount I want. That's it. But also, let me just be clear about this. You don't need to do that. If you're a player and you want to know your value, you don't need to enter the portal to find out your value, because I can tell you that there were players this year that I spoke to. I will say this also after the season, but there were players this year that I spoke to that were pretty openly just like, yeah, this school's been talking to me since September or October. Like a lot of these schools, frankly, for Florida, which let me also say, most players, especially in the SEC, get tampered with. Okay. Whether they choose to enter the portal or not, it's one of the reasons that we have so many players going, I'm coming back to Florida, and having those coming back announcements, because it is a thing where they're constantly getting contacted and communicated to about entering the portal. But there's guys I spoke to that they were like, yeah, I've been getting contacted since September and October. And I think for a lot of players and for a lot of schools, they frankly were kind of just like, all right, well, Billy Napier is probably going to get fired this year. Let's start communicating now with some of the guys that might enter the transfer portal. And I think that that's how it went for a lot of them. Is that what happened with Jaden Woods? Maybe, maybe not. Is that what happened with Trey Wilson? Maybe, maybe not. Like, I'm not saying each and every player this is the case, but there were a lot of guys who other schools probably smelled the blood in the water. Which, look, it sucks to acknowledge, but on the flip side, everyone's tampering. Florida has the right to do the same thing, and I hope that next year Florida's looking at schools with coaches that might be on the hot seat going, okay, we smell blood in the water. You've got some talent. Let's get started on this now. I see a comment that says, okay, first off, Ryan Tooper said maybe he just wants to be closer to home. I do think that's a very realistic possibility. He can go to like an Oklahoma, a Kansas State, a Penn State, and be closer to his home than Gainesville, Florida. And I will also say, as someone that went away for college, there are plenty of people who go away and go, you know what? This isn't all it's turned out to be. I'm going to go home. Can't relate to that, but there were a lot of people that I know that went away and then I'm coming back because they were just like, yeah, like it turns out being away, not all it's tracked out to be. And I think that that's fair, right? That's because don't forget, one of the reasons I try not to be too harsh about some of these situations is like these are still 18, 19-year-old kids, realistically, right? I'm 30 now. I get to say kids about 19, 20-year-olds. But that's really what it is. And it sucks. It does. But it's also life. Like you got to know by now. As much as you want to go, okay, well, you committed to play for Florida, so you're going to play for Florida for 3 or 4 years before you go to the NFL. That's not what college football is anymore. And also, even when you're not talking about athletics, when you're just talking about as a student, a lot of guys go away, a lot of girls go away, a lot of people go away and then come back, as in come back home. And that just is what it is. I think Jaden Woods is a potential Sunday player. And so it really sucks to lose a Sunday player or a potential Sunday player. I think he's got great athletic traits. I think he's got great hustle and effort on the edge. I think it's rare to see a true freshman that is capable of contributing as a pass rusher and run defender on the edge. But at the same time, it was frankly a lot of young guys. They just want to rush the passer. Is he an irreplaceable player? No. He's very difficult to replace. But is he irreplaceable? No. All right. I thought Florida needed to pursue an edge regardless of getting Jaden Woods and Cam James back. This makes it more of a priority, especially if he does choose to actually enter the transfer portal. This staff didn't let it happen. He wanted to leave. Yeah. If he does actually leave, like Q said, they need to change these damn transfer portal rules. I couldn't agree more. And I'm someone who has spoken to players from multiple schools that have been considering the transfer portal, and whether the ultimate decision has been for them to actually portal or actually stay at whatever school they're at. There's a lot that goes into this. And I do think that there's absolutely some need for transfer portal rule changes. I think you should get one free transfer. And then I think it should be, if you can get some kind of hardship waiver and prove your hardship waiver, a lot of these kids that they end up becoming the breadwinners in their house, and they end up becoming the type where it's like, yeah, I gotta help pay the bills around my actual house now. Which I think is a great part of NIL, right? Like for the Florida Gators, we can talk about running back Matt Jones, who a decade ago declared for the NFL draft before he was ready, in my opinion. But he had to. He had responsibilities, and he had to pay for that, and he had to help pay for things. And so he declared for the NFL draft, and he went and he got his money. He did whatever he had to do. And that's life. And NIL allows guys to stay in college and do that. And I think that that's really important. I think that's really helpful. But I think you should get one free portal. You should have, if there's a hardship that you need some kind of hardship waiver for, go ahead. But you have to be able to prove that you deserve the hardship waiver for whatever it could be, right? Relative, family, like relative sick or God forbid, death, or your significant other's pregnant, whatever it may be. That if a head coach, coordinator, or your position coach leaves, I think you should be allowed to portal, because a lot of times, like, you are really committed to a coach that you think is going to get you to the NFL. And that's what a lot of guys come down to. There needs to be some kind of restriction put on the transfer portal. It can't just be guys like TJ Finley, who's about to be on his 7th school in 7 years. Like, it's like stuff like that is just embarrassing for the sport. That shouldn't be a thing where guys portal all the time. That shouldn't be a thing. You should have to sit out a year at that point. You get your one free portal, and then you sit out a year unless there's some kind of other circumstance, or you get a grad transfer. I think if you're a graduate, like if you let's say redshirt your first year, portal, do your college career, and then your grad transfer, sure, go ahead, get one more portal, get one more shot where you basically get to prove to the NFL that you belong. But there needs to be some kind of portal adjustment. And this isn't a Jaden Woods thing, right? Because Jaden Woods would fit in that perfectly fine. It's just the insane volume of portal guys. It's tough. I will also say, I think a lot of these players have just crappy people around them. Like, I think there's just a lot of crappy, selfish people around. And I think they get around these players and they become leeches. And for some guys, it really sucks, because it's like it's your parents, right? For some guys. For some guys, it's a mentor. For some guys, it's your agent, right? There's some agents who you look, and every year they've got 35 guys in the portal, and it's like, you're not doing that because that's in the best interest of your clients. You're doing that because that gets portal money pocket, right? And stuff like that I hate. LJ McCray better be ready to go. Yeah, LJ is going to be hopefully more of a 3-tech, 5-tech kind of guy. I think that's where he belongs. I said when they said he was moving to Jack, I was like, I kind of hate that. I don't think he's a Jack. Um, I don't think that's his skill set. I think he'd be a lot better on the interior. So hopefully he plays a bit more of that as well. Again, does it suck that Jaden Woods is leaving? Yeah, it sucks. But am I going to be heartbroken? No, no. I love him. I want him back, but and look, he had a ton of promise. He showed really good film. He did. He showed a really good film in 2025. I think that he would have been a really good football player for us. And there is again still the potential that he's back, but I don't know. Like one player is not gonna make or break anything for me. And this is the first player where I truly go, that's an on-field heavy loss. Jaden Woods is the first one. The first on-field heavy loss that the Florida Gators are enduring. Is any of the starters that left, you lost experience and those snaps suck, but same time, we got your guy, right? And that is what it is. Brandon podcast for the logo. You're damn right. Woods is a beast, but in the portal era, no one's replaceable. That's the thing too, right? Like, it sucks to say, but it's the transfer portal time. There's no more excuse really of, oh, well, there's a lot of attrition. Okay, it's a transfer portal. Go get the talent. Like, you lost talent to the transfer portal. You had transfer portal attrition. Okay. Go bring in talent through the transfer portal. It's as simple as that. Sorry, but once you get paid to play the game, kid goes out the window. They're pro athletes. I disagree. I disagree. I do. I understand, like, and I think that as far as criticism for play, I think criticism is very warranted. I've said, hey, if you make more than me, I'm gonna critique you about your football playing ability, right? Or athletic ability in general. I think if you do things the wrong way, that also matters. But I also think that it's like, all right, look, like, these are, end of the day, these are still kids. These kids have a full-time staff and agents and marketing teams to work with them. It is very rare. Okay. That is very rare. That's sure some have agencies that they're signed to, and those agencies have people that are required to work about them, I'll say, maybe not for them, but about them. But that's all part of it. That's just it. I think, yeah, you should get one transfer, like people said. I wonder if GMs will bring this up to the NCAA. I don't think they will. I don't think GMs will bring this up to the NCAA, just because GMs also benefit from it a lot, right? Like, think about it. As a GM, it sucks to lose a guy to the portal for whatever reason. But at the same time, you can also benefit from that same thing. So I don't think this is a thing that GMs are going to bring up to the NCAA or try to enforce, really. So no, I don't think so. Any chance Hayden comes back? I'm keeping it real with you, Chief. I'm going to say there's a maybe 0.05% chance of that. I think Hayden Hanson's gone. And wherever he winds up, I hope that he balls out. And yeah, I mean, unless he plays Florida at some point, then I hope he gets shut out in that game. But I hope every other game he balls out. He's a great time. And like I've said, like, look, like, I know there's gonna be plenty of people. I know there are plenty of people in Gator Nation that critique Hayden and don't like Hayden, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. That's your opinion. I'm going to continue to say that I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, and that this was a really crappy year to have to come on and talk about this team every single week for him. Again, and we're going to get to a break in a minute. But I do just want to say, like, yeah, this was a really crappy year to have to come talk about this team every single week. And I think DJ Lagway was the only other player that had to do it. And so I give Hayden that credit because it would have been real easy for him to spend some weeks going, you know what? I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not gonna. Right. So we could say that. Cam Coleman talk. We could talk about him in the next after the break. Moneyball. We could talk about that after the break. Yeah, we could talk about all that after the break. Only limit is what Florida Victorious is willing to raise. Woods didn't leave for money. That's not the issue. Exactly. Like this is. I don't care how people feel about Florida Victorious, how people feel about NIL, how people feel about all that stuff. This was not an NIL decision. This was not an NIL decision. This was not a Florida Victorious decision. This was not a decision other than from what On3 has reported wasn't a place that Jaden Woods felt he fit or wanted to be right now. That is what it is. Like you could blame whoever you want for some things, but at the same time, there's also instances where it's like, all right, well, maybe that's not the best. Maybe that's not the best argument to make in that instance. If you have transfer portal positions you want to talk about, needs, players on the roster that you want to talk about, whatever you want to talk about, throw it in the chat. We're going to go live for hopefully another 30-ish minutes. We'll talk transfer portal. We'll talk a whole bunch. We'll talk Trent McKnight getting hired as the inside receivers coach. Let me know how you feel about Jaden Woods leaving because I have yet to see anybody that goes, don't care. I think I think this is the first player where pretty much everybody in Gator Nation was unanimously like, all right, wish he was still here. And again, I don't think it's a shut door yet. I'll say that. But there's a lot. We'll talk Cam Coleman. We'll talk everything when we get back with Locked On Gators. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something that you wrap, it's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it so that when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code college at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code college. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions do apply. And there is nothing like college basketball season, tailgates, packed stadiums, packed arenas, being right there in the middle of it all, feeling the stadium shake as a big moment happens, right? Maybe it's a three, maybe it's a poster, maybe it's just some clutch free throws. You never know, right? But getting tickets has become more frustrating than honestly even some of the losses where you shoot like 55% from the free throw line. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And also, I will say this for Kane's man Laz saying whatever he's saying. Nobody loves you, nobody likes you, and you can get the hell out of here, frankly. That's life, right? We are talking about the Florida Gators in the transfer portal. We got quite a few people. Got a lot going on now. Dallas Wilson and Jaden Woods will both go to Texas A&M for their 2026 campaign to win the CFP trophy. I hope not. Just because if you are going to pursue a championship trophy, you should probably go to a school that has a chance to win it. Texas A&M, not that school. Part of it's because straight up, just Marcel Reed's not going to be the guy. Too wildly inconsistent. Who's telling us it isn't a money issue? Did they also happen to sell us optimism during Kiffin hire as well? Great point, Ray Graves Goat, but I can say I think this time it's actually genuine that it's not a money issue. On3 reported that. I will confirm that it's not the money. That it's not the money there. So we could say that as well. Still waiting on money saved on keeping Napier another year to spend in the portal. Yeah, that was always a crock of you-know-what. Which also, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I mean, he's gone, right? We could say this. Not all of the money saved, and I've said this to the Insider program before, not all of the money saved on keeping Billy Napier in 2024 was kind of like, oh, well, we're not using the 27 million or whatever it is, or whatever it was. We're not using the 27 million to replace Billy Napier. So let's use the money in the portal. Because not all that money was spent so that they can keep it for the buyout should they choose to fire Napier in 2025, which they did choose to do. So there's that, right? LSU running back Harlem Berry to Texas to play for his uncle, Texas running back coach Jabbar Luke. It's so funny to me. Like, it feels like Jabbar Luke is just one of those guys who's related to everybody, right? There's every year I feel like there's a recruit where it's just like, yeah, I'm related to Jabbar Luke. Cam Jackson was like, yeah, my cousin is Jabbar Luke, like all that stuff. Like, everybody's just related to Jabbar Luke. It's wild stuff there. Florida must decide if it wants to compete money-wise with Texas schools, LSU, OSU. These schools have no limit on NIL budget, only constrained by rate card plus rev share. Not really restricted by anything on those schools. If you have no limit on an NIL budget, you have no limit on an NIL budget. You can work around just about anything. This is still like this is college football, and they're putting in their rules, but like a lot of them aren't necessarily super enforceable right now. Dallas Wilson, look, for the people that are like, oh yeah, Dallas Wilson or Jaden Ball is a lock to Texas, and Dallas Wilson's a lock to Texas A&M. Wouldn't say that. I am going to remain in the camp that I remained in earlier today when people asked me about it, or that I said I was in earlier today. I'm going to remain in the camp of like, I don't think that those decisions have been made yet. And similar to the entire, Lane Kiffin saga, I'm not going to say something's happening when I've said that I don't think those decisions have been made yet, right? Even with Lane, I said, yeah, I think he'll wind up at Florida. Obviously, it was wrong. Like I said, I think he'll wind up at Florida, but I don't think Lane knows yet. And I was saying that up until a couple of days before the decision was made. That I was like, yeah, I think he'll wind up at Florida, but I don't think Lane actually knows the answers to that yet. So it's tough for me to say what's going to happen. Q said, I'm hurt Woods is leaving. I was high on him. Do you think they go after Amarus? I would go after Amarus Williams, but I would have gone after him even though he kept Jaden Woods, frankly. I don't know if you look at Amarus Williams as someone that's going to replace what Jaden Woods brought to the table for you, because Jaden Woods, 6'3", basically 250, right? And wasn't, the most productive player, had 17 pressures, so was the most productive there. But Amarus Williams, 6'2", 260, so a little more stout. But Amarus has been in college for a couple years, hasn't been incredibly productive in those years either, but he's also played more of a hand in the dirt type role than Jaden Woods to this point. I'd still go for Amarus Williams regardless. Even if you had Jaden Woods, I'd have gone after him just to get another edge rusher into the room with potential. But I think at this point, if you lose Jaden Woods, which again, I'm going to keep saying if. I'm going to keep saying if you lose Jaden Woods, I think that the priority needs to be replacing him with someone that you know can come in and be a productive impact player from day one. Like you're past the point now of like, oh, let's add this high school player that can contribute here and contribute there. Like it's the transfer portal time. Go get contributors. And like John Summerall throughout his career has done a pretty solid job of going to get those contributors, right? John Summerall throughout his career has constantly had players poached from his rosters, whether that was at Troy or Tulane, and has constantly gone into the portal to find new players and consistently gone on to the conference championship immediately following that, right? So he's been able to find players that fit what he wants to do, or he's been able to find players that are productive and he can then fit the system to those players. Will that be something that's as easily attainable, or will that be a task or a goal that's as easily attainable, easily accomplishable in the SEC? Probably not, right? Higher level of competition than before. Harder to find players that fit that. There's a smaller pool to fit that, right? But I do think you got to just go, hey, like, who are the proven guys in the portal? Let's go after him. I will again circle back to a player that I spoke about, I think it was last week. And I was like, hey, if I'm Florida, I'm going to pursue him and I'm gonna really push there. Adam Trick is one of them that I'm talking about there. Edge rusher from Miami of Ohio, had 66 pressures this year. It was like third in the country. He's really productive, really effective, can contribute right there. I see some that are kind of gone outdated at that point. JMU players leaving in droves, I hear. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Billy Napier can work out in the Sun Belt. I think that's a great spot for him, frankly. But he's probably going to have to do this the same way that he did it at Louisiana. You're going to need to nail your evals, which again, easier to do in the Sun Belt because there's it's easier to find a hidden gem that can contribute in the Sun Belt than it is to find a hidden gem that can contribute in the SEC, right? Because in the SEC, there's like the talent difference between the SEC and the Sun Belt is so drastic. So you can probably figure that out, go compete, and fix things. But he's probably going to have to do it through high school again, just because I think a lot of college players are going to look at him and say, well, we saw the cluster, you know what, that was Florida. So no, thank you. And again, that's one of those situations where fair, right? Like fair. No other way to, I think, talk about it. So is that what young players or veterans do you see leaving realistically to the portal? I mean, I hope you don't lose many, right? I mean, Florida's at a point where like you've lost about 20 guys, and that's fine. I don't think the volume of guys that you lost is too bad. Just because again, the approach that I'm especially taking this year and will continue to take in the future when we talk about players leaving for the portal is if a player with that production was coming to Florida in the portal, would you be excited? Would you be mad, happy? What would that be? And if the answer is not excited, why are you mad that that player is leaving? That's the approach that I take. And I do think that there's levels to, right? Like Aiden Mizell is someone that people continuously talk about. And Amir Jackson is someone that people continuously talk about if they entered the portal. Aiden Mizell, I mean, probably not coming back. I don't think he should come back, but probably isn't coming back. But Amir Jackson is coming back. And it's like, great. Amir Jackson coming back is important. He's a guy whose production leaving doesn't necessarily upset me, but having him back on your roster means that you get the opportunity to develop him. And I think that's important. I'm still a development guy, right? I know a lot of people have shifted toward, hey, just go get the best players in the portal, and kind of worry about that year, right? Like, just go get the best players that are in the portal this year. Worry about winning this year. Worry about everything else later. I'm still someone who says, go get guys from high school that you can develop to be great, and it is a privilege to develop them. And so with Amir Jackson, like, he's someone who, if he left, I wouldn't be heartbroken about it, frankly. But I'm happy he's back because I still think he's someone that has potential. I'm not getting upset over potential leaving in the portal. Frankly, I'm not getting super excited about potential coming here in the portal. So I think that's the way that I'm going to think about it, is like, I'm not getting upset about potential leaving. I will get upset about production leaving. I'm not getting upset about potential coming in. I'm not getting hyped about potential coming in. I'm getting hyped about production. Doesn't mean there's not value, but it does mean that I'm going to be like less upset about guys that are potential because we don't know what they're going to be, right? Why take the boat when you could take the mystery box? It could be anything. It could even be a boat, right? Like why? How many players stay if we hired Lane Kiffin? Of the players that left, I honestly don't know. Not that I think they would necessarily care to play more for Lane, but I do think that there'd be there's still a good amount of money, right? I think there'd be probably a little bit more if Lane were the coach, just from some boosters. But look, Florida still has a solid NIL budget, from what I've been told, for this coming year and the foreseeable future. Texas Tech, Texas A&M, et cetera, are willing to go north of $40 million. Sure. Like, I don't know what that necessarily means if you're not bringing in the right guys, right? Or I don't know what that necessarily means if you're just throwing money to bring in talent and that's it, then that is what it is, right? If you're throwing money at guys to get them into the portal and then not closing the deal, then that is what it is. Woods' stats in 2025 were not off the charts, people. Compare his stats against the edge players in the portal already. I think the difference with that is that Woods did it as a true freshman. I agree. His stats were not off the charts. I don't think his film was amazing. I thought it was really good for a true freshman. But I don't think it was amazing. But I think the big difference is that he's a true freshman and a lot of the guys in the portal aren't. And that matters. Again, I'm someone that I care about developing players. Where's Cam Coleman going to? I don't know, right? I think that Florida should be players in the Cam Coleman sweepstakes, right? Have his wide receivers coach. Right now, the only big name receiver that's locked in is Vernell Brown III. Especially if you lose Dallas Wilson, I think that the price tag that comes with Cam Coleman, whatever that may be, I don't like to talk about the actual specifics of reported numbers just because I don't believe most of them. I think a lot of these schools have, incentives and escalators tied into their contracts. So I'm like, I don't care too much for the actual numbers themselves. Also, frankly, like, each school has a different amount of money, right? In the NFL, if a team spends, $20 million on an average player, or if they give Daniel Jones $45 million or whatever it is, you can judge that based off of, we know that they have a salary cap of this, and we know they can't go above that salary cap. College is different, right? College, theoretically, you can go over whatever your cap is and find the money later, right? Or raise the money later, theoretically. So it's different. You can't really go, yeah, they spent 15% of their cap on this. It's tough to do that. So we'll see. But I think that if you do lose Dallas Wilson, I think the Cam Coleman price tag, whatever that may be, becomes a lot more realistic and logical. And I think having Marcus Davis as wide receivers coach helps you, right? Because Marcus Davis was at Auburn. He was on the staff that recruited Cam Coleman. I think it helps you if you're Florida. But I think that Cam's going to have a lot of schools throwing a lot of money at him. That's going to be really warranted because he's a really good football player. But that makes it also tough to gauge what he's really going to do. You think if Wilson leaves, we can get Coleman? No, that's what I just talked about. Agreed, Brandon. Schools can always cheat. Brandon, I have friends who are Gators fans, and they're worried that Summerall hire was just settling because they couldn't get a big name, and they feel like it's just another G5 coach. That's fine. Go back to the days when go back to the day John Summerall was hired, and the day after John Summerall was hired. And I talked about it a lot. Like, if your main knock on John Summerall is he's a Group of 5 coach, that's not a good knock to have, right? Like, that's not a good knock. I think if you're comparing the biggest negatives between like a John Summerall and Lane Kiffin, you're all right. Well, Lane loses games to teams that he shouldn't lose to every year, at least one, right? Except this year. But every year other than this year, he's lost games to teams that he shouldn't lose to, right? Kentucky, Florida, whoever it may be. And I mean, if your biggest knock is G5, okay. That's good. Group of 5 is not an insult. I don't care. And if you think it is, that's more telling about you than it is about the coach. The fact that it's not a money thing almost makes it worse. That means that you can't sell the kid on your vision. Yeah, it's kind of what I touched on earlier, right? Like if it's not if it's a money thing, you can just go, all right, like we can't afford it, or we don't value you at this, or whatever it may be. But if it's a different reason, then it's something about you that the person doesn't like, and that's a lot different, right? Like if it's not like if I have the money to give you what you want and you still just don't want me, that sucks, right? That's a crappy spot to be in. So is that we're spending more than enough to compete and win. It's top tier funds. We don't have to spend what Texas spent. Texas spent $40 million. They lost their entire running back room, missed college football playoff. Yep. Is it not different for Summerall as everyone else in his conference was getting poached as well? Yeah, that's the thing with Summerall is the American is honestly the 4th best conference in college football, right? I think the American's better than the ACC right now. Frankly, I think that the AAC is better than the ACC right now. Just honestly, like you look at like the top half of the American and the top half of the ACC, and you tell me who's going to win those games. I think Clemson and Miami, sure, they probably dust just about anybody in the AAC. Definitely Miami. But I don't know. I think you look at like a Georgia Tech, you look at like Syracuse, SMU, and you go, yeah, like the top American conference teams, Tulane, USF, they're going to give you a run for your money. And so I think the Americans pretty damn good there. I bet the new coaching staff already has particular players in mind to bring to Florida. Absolutely. Absolutely. Seems Summerall meeting with Ball must not have gone well for Gators. Let me see. Did Jaden Ball announce his intention to enter the transfer portal? Let's see, Jaden Ball. No. Okay, then why do we think the meeting didn't go well? Just out of curiosity. Just because you didn't get an answer yet doesn't mean that it went poorly, right? You just didn't get an answer yet. That's it. Again, I think that this is like Jaden Ball is a spot where it's just like he doesn't know yet. Frankly, I genuinely think that there's quite a few things where even if it's like reported like, oh, so it's like Texas fans think they're getting Jaden Ball. Okay, we thought we were getting Lane Kiffin. I don't give a damn what you think. Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys where it's like, all right, like if you leave, it sucks. I wish you were here, but we still got to replace you. And I think that this portal class, I think it's really telling. The portal has a lot of talent in it right now. And there's still going to be more talent entering it coming up. Like there's going to be guys who aren't announcing, because don't forget, right now, the portal's not open. And the portal opens on Friday. Right now, all of these announcements are player X has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal. There's a lot more players that are going to enter the transfer portal that are waiting for it to open. Okay. That is what, and some of that is going to be, oh, hey, like, I don't want to deal with the negative backlash leading up to the portal. Right. Some of that, frankly, is going to be guys going, well, I don't want to, rip the Band-Aid off and make this announcement to the staff or whatever it may be until I could basically say, yep, I'm going to hit the portal, buy, and leave town immediately. Right. There's going to be some of those things. I don't care. Shane Matthews said today, looks like Dallas goes to Texas A&M. Not to be a D-bag, but I'm pretty certain there was a good stretch of time where Shane was like, yeah, Lane's coming to Florida. He's coming to Florida. So, again, tough. Brandon, you're a development guy with players, not with coaching staff. What do you mean? I'm all for coaches developing, right? I think there's just some guys where it's like, all right, well, we've seen what you could do. Or I think that maybe a coaching staff in the SEC isn't the place to develop, right? Go to the American. Go to Conference USA. Go to the Big 12. Go develop there. Cut your teeth. Then come to the SEC. For some guys. If Dallas goes, there are great receivers we can bring in along with Gross and Williams coming in. We find a receiver. Amir is big to get back. I agree. I do. I think he's at a really high ceiling. I talked about it this morning. I think Amir Jackson has a really high ceiling. I just hope that we, get to see him come closer to it this year, frankly. So we'll see with that one. So I'm just looking through the chat right now because there's a lot. Brandon is over here acting like, historically speaking, most group of 5 coaches don't pan out at the Power 4 level. Is it a concern we just hired a group of 5 coach? I think what you're trying to say, if I'm reading that right, I think what we're trying to say there is, like, you're just saying, hey, most group of 5 coaches don't pan out. Basically, like, there's a reason they're group of 5 coaches, right? Counterpoint, 98% of coaches in general don't pan out if the goal is championship, right? Even if it's not, even if the goal is just, hey, be our coach for a long time and find success for a long time, which for most Power 4 schools is probably the goal. Most coaches don't work out. It's not because they're G5 coaches. It's not because they're defensive-minded coaches. It's not because any one reason, right? There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah, most G5 coaches don't work out. Most coaches don't work out. It's as simple as that, really. It really is. It is very hard to find consistent, sustained success in college football. It's not because they're a group of 5 coaches, and it's because it's really hard to do. And there's so many factors that go into it. That's really the hardest thing about it, is that you have an 85-man roster. You have, most teams have probably 12 to 15 coaches right now. You've got all that. It's constantly cycling through. There's just so many variables. And it's as simple as, like, you could have a bad safety and he has a coverage bust. And then what? Now you look bad because of it? Like, you look like a clown because of it? Like, there's so much that depends. So much of your success depends on other people. It's tough. Yeah, Rob, exactly. Like, it's you, buddy. It's you. Jaden wants a coach that'll stroke his ego. Why? What makes you say that? I'm curious. What makes you say that? Because I don't think that's true at all. I don't. I think, if anything, Jaden Woods showed up and immediately started working with professional pass rush coaches. He was done with high school and immediately started working with professional pass rush coaches. Why would I assume that it's an ego thing? Right? Is the two-lane coach, two-lane guard too small for the SEC? I don't think so. 6'2", 300. I don't think so. Guard is it's most important to have power, and I think he's got that. Can we talk about the Trent McKnight hire as a slot receiver coach and everything? Yeah, we've talked about it. Shane also tried to sell Graham, throwing it all over there. Right, that's true. That's a good point. Can we talk about Trent McKnight? Yeah, so Trent McKnight, coach with Alabama ties, air raid ties. He was at Samford for a while, so he's got experience working in the Hatch Tech, which is the offense that Buster Faulkner comes from originally at Valdosta State. I frankly, I don't know if he's an awesome coach. I'm not going to say he is, but he's a coach with Alabama ties that knows how to coach the system. And I think that kind of fits with this approach. Like, I know people want to hear, oh, he's an amazing developer, or oh, he's such a good recruiter. I think this coaching staff, they went for big names at the top, right? Coordinators, trenches, big names there. And then everybody else, they were just like, can you do your, can you coach your position? Trent McKnight receivers have been productive everywhere he's gone for the past few years. He's got coordinator experience. So he's going to be another mind in the room that helps that. And I love that. As far as the inside receiver coach, the first coach I ever saw do that was Mike Leach. And I think that, I've seen it with other air raid coaches. The first coach I ever saw do it was Mike Leach. I think the thing with that was that a lot of air raid coaches would go, hey, we're going to have a D-line coach. We're going to have a linebacker coach. We're going to have a secondary coach. And then on offense, we're going to have an OC, a running backs coach, wide receiver coach, inside receiver coach, tight end coach, offensive line coach. And we'd have those. It's important to remember that more teams probably would have had an inside receiver coach earlier if there weren't restrictions on how many position coaches you could have. Right? So, yeah, we can talk about the air raid thing and that Buster Faulkner generally comes from an air raid. Hatch Tech's very air raidy. And so Buster Faulkner comes from an air raid. And so he probably has that natural penchant to have an inside receivers coach, but also they're no longer restricted with the number of position coaches they can have. So why not have more that can actually help you if they're qualified? And Trent McKnight is. So then that's kind of what I'm coming down to. It's just he is qualified. Resume fits. Experience with Buster Faulkner. Experience with the offense. Give him a shot. That's really what comes down. And I'm not trying to do the thing of just whatever they do, I'm good with. But I am trying to say that, you're at a spot where they're hiring coaches that they think can just get the most out of their guys pretty much right away. That seems to be the approach. And if that is Trent McKnight, then hell yeah. Rather that seems to be the approach they're taking. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with saying I don't need the whole, he's a great developer, he's a great recruiter, whatever he may be, of this trade-off that we constantly do in college football. They're kind of just going, hey, he's a good football coach. We'll deal with the rest later. And I kind of like it. I really, it's a breath of fresh air. It might crash and burn horribly, right? But everything might crash and burn, right? You could be a tremendous recruiter, but if your team's not willing to spend as much, then hey, you're not going to be as competitive as you want to be, right? You could be a tremendous developer, but the portal guys can jump in every year. I think this is the coaching equivalent of going, we're not worried about, who we have in the portal, who's coming back from the portal, who's leaving the portal, all that stuff. We're just worried about, can you compete right now? And I feel like that's what the coaching staff is kind of being built to do, which I like. It's really interesting. I'm excited to see how that works out. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that one goes. I truly am. So when an inside-out player like VB3 work with McKnight and our other receiver coach, I think that for the most part, they're going to be working together a lot. I think for the most part, they're going to be working together a lot. I think that they'll kind of be side by side. We'll get you Ryan and Q, two of my favorites. I think that for the most part, you could see, an inside receiver coach and a wide receiver coach, inside receiver, wide receiver. I think you'll see a lot of them, a lot of crossover there for reasons that you mentioned, right? Like nobody really plays strictly inside, strictly outside. I mean, we can go to, I think, let's say 2021 Mississippi State, right? Mike Leach was there in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he passed in 2022. We can go to 2021 Mississippi State, where like Mike Leach had an inside receivers coach, and the guy that played the most slot snaps played most of his snaps in the slot, but like still played a little bit out wide. There were guys that played, and again, that's like a true pure air raid. Florida, I really don't think it's going to be a true pure air raid. I think you're going to see a bit of what I call the spread raid, right? Like it's going to be an air raid passing attack, power spread run game. You're going to see a little bit of a mix in all of that. And so I think you're going to see a lot of variety there. You're going to see guys like VB3 work inside. And look, there's going to be some guys that are going to spend a lot of their time in the slot. There's going to be some guys spend a lot of their time out wide. That's fine. Like I think you're going to see a lot of guys, especially in practice, interacting with other spots. And I think that's kind of the plan, right? Is to have guys, because you've got so much talent. You've got like Davion Gross and Justin Williams are guys that can play wide receiver and running back. Highly doubt they're going to be just working with inside receivers coach or outside receivers coach, right? I think you're going to see a lot of overlap there. I think that's how it should be. I think the more important part is recruiting, having a coordinator or a coach with coordinator experience on the staff, and being able to work in that way, as opposed to purely, he's going to coach our inside receivers separate from our wide receivers. When you do like the on-air stuff, sure, guys are going to spend more time with one coach or another. You're probably not going to have a lot of the outside guys, practicing running bubbles. Like you're probably not going to see a ton of that. But you also don't want to see that, right? So I'm probably like a few years ago, I would have hated to see like a practice where Justin Shorter's running bubble screens. Not your game, big dog. Shouldn't be doing it. So I'm good for it. I agree with you, Q. I think that Davion Gross can get early reps. I think that versatility is going to be really helpful. And I think that we're going to see a really interesting transfer portal period. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free every single podcast and on YouTube. Been live for an hour. And we had over 200 people in here constantly cycling through for that whole time. And that's very, very much appreciated for you. Thank you so much. Just quick, 2025 numbers in terms of like how many views we got blew the doors off 2024, which blew the doors off 2023. So really, truly thank you for letting this be my job. It's ridiculous. It's the coolest thing ever. And thank you all so much. We will be back tomorrow morning, talk more Florida Gators. Might have a bonus show tomorrow afternoon as well. I'll go live if I can. If not, that is what it is. We'll hopefully I'll be able to pre-record something and get a bonus show tomorrow. But thank you so much for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, every single podcast and on YouTube. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI and swampsignal.substack.com. And I will see you all next time.